We are now preparing for a further easing of the lockdown and a gradual opening of our economy. If we lift the lockdown too abruptly and too quickly, we risk a rapid and unmanageable surge in infections. We will therefore continue to proceed cautiously, informed by the best available evidence and guided by the advice of local and international experts, but also in observing the experiences of other nations.
Hey guys, so you finally got your family meeting. On Wednesday evening, President Cyril Ramaphosa taking to the nation, speaking to us saying, at the end of May, end of the month, we are ready to ease the restrictions. So we'll be moving into lockdown level 3. However, this is not a blanket approach. So this doesn't apply to everybody. This will apply to everyone but concerning districts, metros, and I assume provinces, because one thing's about the Western Cape and the numbers in the Western Cape. I mean, all of you are excited about being finally able to buy a little bit of booze to throw out the pineapple, but a lot of people saying, yeah, but what about Western Cape? You're calling it Wuhan Cape of Wuhan, after Wuhan city in China, where the virus was first detected. And you're saying that, places like Western Cape, Cape Town, should remain under lockdown level 4 and even be considered to be taken up to 5. I must tell you, while you make those claims, the Premier of the Western Cape, Winde, is already trying to get it to 3. He doesn't want to wait until the end of the month. This very same person, by the way, is in self-isolation. The Premier came into contact with an ENCA cameraman who has since lost his life to the pandemic. This pandemic is serious. I keep thinking it was discovered somewhere between December and January. And in the space of January, where it hit more countries outside of China, and now, which is May, it's affected millions, killed hundreds of thousands. And for us as the media fraternity in South Africa, as small as we are already impacted. So ENC has lost a colleague due to this. And I know at 702, at Prime Media, 2 producers have contracted the virus. So it is really serious. It is really scary. And, journalists, people don't take what we do into consideration, but we are also exposed. We are also seen as essential service workers. So it's heartbreaking. My heart bleeds for the colleagues at ENCA, and I go out to the colleagues at 702. It's a very difficult period. It's a very difficult virus to manage.
Our goal is to steadily increase economic activity while putting measures in place to reduce the transmission of the virus and provide adequate care for those who become infected and need treatment. When I last addressed you, I outlined the 5-level alert system that we have introduced to guide this process. At the time, the country was at level 5, as I said, which has the most stringent restrictions on movement of people and economic activity. Alert level 4, which is the current level across the country, retains most of the lockdown regulations but permits the gradual opening up of certain parts of the economy. Alert level 3 to 1 allow progressively greater relaxation of restrictions. As I indicated then, some areas of the country may be designated at a particular alert level, while others may be designated at another level.
So on Wednesday evening when he made the address, the one thing that kept playing in my head is, this man looks tired. He's 10 past tired. The fatigue we keep saying we're feeling on the ground seems to also find expression on the president's face, Then I think about what he's dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So he's got the National Command Council meetings, he's got cabinet meetings, then he has to deal with premiers, and he has to deal with ministerial plans around combating COVID. And I heard from insiders that there's a lot of back and forth of reports. When he's not satisfied, he sends things back. So he's going through things, I think, with a fine-tooth comb and trying to make sense of where we are as a country and what we need to do. But the other interesting thing about his briefing is a lot of people are saying, no, he said a lot about nothing. For me, it was a concession. That entire address was a whole lot of sorry. Because government has gotten certain things wrong. Because government has been heavy-handed. Some regulations have not made any sense.
The lockdown that we've imposed was absolutely necessary. Without the lockdown, the number of coronavirus infections would have soared uncontrollably. Our health facilities would have been overwhelmed and many thousands South Africans would have died. From the very beginning, our response has been guided by advice from world-leading experts from our own country and from across the globe.
Another interesting thing for me this week has been this thing around the Ekurhuleni speechwriter, Malaika Mahlatsi. She is really like an incredible young woman, Malaika I met her a few years ago. Malaika is an amazing mind. She is a player in the political space, an activist. She's a great writer. She's an author. She's Mzwandile Masina, the Ekurhuleni mayor's speechwriter.
My boss went. He went and publicly, without speaking to any board, decided that he's decreasing our salary.
So basically, the way I understand the story around Malaika is that she got into a relationship with some guy for around 2 weeks and then broke up with him, and he wasn't happy. So he then took to social media. So in all of this, he started making very serious allegations. One, that she was ghostwriting the mayor's PhD. And then also information around the municipality and pay deductions. So a lot of information that I think she wouldn't have wanted to get out there. I think it's really unfair. But to make matters worse, then the municipality gets involved. Not only does the mayor dispute the claims, which I think he's got the right to, but they also suspend her. And the reasons alleged to her embarrassing the city. And I don't think Malaika embarrassed Ekurhuleni. I think a man who couldn't deal with whatever happened between the two of them took issue with her and tried to paint her in bad light, thus embarrassing the city. I don't think it's something she did. So it's not like she went out and posted information about Ekurhuleni. These were private conversations, whether true or not, but these were supposedly private conversations. What I do worry about is that Malaika, like Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, broke lockdown regulations. When we are all told stay at home, you're not allowed to engage with anybody, it's a criminal offense if you do so. She was having somebody visiting her in that period. That's a violation. You're a government employee, you're a public servant, and you're doing exactly what the minister did. And there was great outrage there. And I think that if we are to be outraged really in this issue, is merely that. Over and above everything else, I really think it's much ado about nothing. This guy and his ego must go heal far, far away. The woman is once again being punished for something she didn't do. She didn't do anything. Ellen Winde joins me for the 9th episode of One More Thing, a podcast with myself, Tshidi Madia. All right, so as I was saying earlier, we are speaking to the Western Cape Premier, Alan Winde, who is in self-isolation, who's quarantining. He was exposed to ENCA cameraman Lungile Tom. I did say we also have a fallen hero in the media fraternity as well. Premier, thank you so much for joining us in between what I assume are a lot of virtual meetings today.
Yes. Well, it's nothing new I think we've been running it like this for a while now. It just means that I can't go to any kind of site visit or go and see what's happening if there's any area that I need to go and check on. But so it feels sort of like normal.
How are you feeling? Have you been screened? Are you going to test? How are you feeling physically as well, health-wise?
I'm fine. I haven't gone to test. I've been screened. In actual fact, the screening even said to me at the end of the screening, they said to me that I was probably what they call a casual contact, which doesn't even need to quarantine or test, but I've got to practice what I preach. So the right thing to do is to quarantine. It's not so difficult. We're used to it now. I think in the beginning it was maybe difficult. This is the second time I'm actually doing it. I had also come into contact with someone else before early on But
Yes.
yeah, all fine, all healthy, all strong.
All right, that's good to hear. Premier, let's speak about the Western Cape. What is actually happening in the province as far as the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned?
So maybe I will start right at the very beginning when we were watching what was happening in other countries around the world. We then said we better start preparing. I still remember we already set up, I mean, internationally we call it the Command Council. We hadn't even had those words yet. We just set up our Joint Operations Command, where we've already got our procedures on what we do. And I still remember it was a Sunday afternoon, and we were actually in our Operations Command when the president called me to say that later on that evening he was going to announce that we were going to go or declare this a disaster. So we'd already put that in place. We already started to prepare, and I think that's what we've been doing, and specifically using the lockdown for this preparation. Everybody was telling us early on, testing, that's what you've got to be doing. And that's exactly what we did do. And now we've hit a bit of a brick wall because we actually have hit a bottleneck with testing in South Africa. So whether it's government or private sector, and whichever province, it doesn't make any difference. We're now not getting the throughput on our volumes of testing, and it's taking too long to get a result. So that's making it a bit more difficult to manage. But we've put our health response in place. It's not all in place as in every bed yet, but the contracts are signed, the construction is happening. We've got 1,466 beds in our hospital. We've got 3,306 beds in our quarantine and isolation, and we decided yesterday to up that to 6,600. We've got 102 million rands of the PPE in stock and another 250 million on the way. So that's what we've spent the last few weeks doing. And now, of course, our attention seems to be shifting to other things like the humanitarian response. And of course, that's probably the humanitarian and economic response is the next real focus, is how we get the balance.
A lot of South Africans are intent on saying they believe or think the Western Cape is not focused on what it's actually dealing with or doesn't understand, and it's too critical on national government and too preoccupied with opening up the economy. I just wanted to speak to you just about the perceptions, even the idea of being ready, Premier. Some are saying...
So I want to maybe start with that.
Okay,
what
sure.
criticism have I made of national government so far?
No, they're saying the DA government, not you specifically, Premier. They're saying the Western Cape. Obviously, the DA is in charge of the... I like how you laugh. Obviously, the DA is in charge of the Western Cape. So the sentiments that people are having, when you look at social media and just general commentary, is that the DA is not focused on the Western Cape, where it's governing. It's too focused on national and being critical of every decision national is making. Saying, but if you look at pictures coming out of Western Cape, obviously everyone will go back to the promenade, and when everyone is allowed to be out and about, everyone thinks about how you already want to open up the economy and move to level 3. So based on those things, people are saying Western Cape is not looking at what it's facing, even though in conversation you and I here, you say to me, yeah, but you're right on track as far as the numbers are concerned and tracking the pandemic.
Okay, so I think obviously there are a lot of people trying to play politics and drive a political narrative. And of course, there's an ANC and a DA, and then there's the provincial government and the national government. And obviously we operate according to DA policies, but we are still a government and we still operate as a government. So, I mean, obviously my political principle, and you obviously spoken to him, to John Steenhuisen, but I also have to operate as a government. And as a government, I meet with the president, I talk to the president, I do what I think, and my cabinet, we do it, and our top management do what we think is best in this process. Whenever I hear people saying things like, oh, but you the Wuhan and you the epicenter and you all of these things, you know, I quietly say to myself, you know, one of these days it's going to swing around, because that's the nature of this beast. I do know that my numbers are higher than everywhere else. I've got 2 explanations. One is that we're a bit ahead of the curve, and the other one is we test a hang of a lot more. And then people start, you know, you can always play with numbers. I saw the latest numbers is Western Cape's testing is 56,000 and Gauteng is 92,000. And yeah, that's right. Gauteng's numbers are more than ours. But at the moment, we are testing 541 people per 100,000, and Gauteng's testing 439 per 100,000. We test people in our mortuaries. We don't just test people in our hospitals. 11%, it was 15%, now 11% of our post-mortems are coming back as positive. They would have just been classed as a heart failure or a diabetic who died. We really are hunting the positive cases so that we get as accurate a positive as possible so that we can deal with it and manage it. And again, it's not a competition. So, and people must be careful what they say, because I promise you, wherever we've got in South Africa high density populations, that's where we've got to be zooming in our hotspots and making sure we actually deal with this as best as we can.
You've raised a lot of points I want to pick at. The first one I want to speak
Sure.
about are the numbers very quickly. Are you happy? Do you feel the numbers that are being produced at a national level are consistent with what you're finding in the province? You know, you're saying it's not a competition. You speak about
Numbers are different.
Mm.
They definitely are different. I'm getting the last numbers that I was getting, I'm getting 8.57% positives to test. Nationally, we're getting 2.8 positives to test. That's way lower than what we're getting. Now, why is it? And of course, I don't know that answer.
Have you not tried to reach out to the minister about this?
Oh, yes, we spent 3 hours presenting to the minister on Saturday. Our epidemiologists and specialists meet with Professor Karim on a regular basis. We are actually doing a study this week where we're bringing in the UCT modeling. We're bringing South Africa's Association of what are they called? ASA. We're bringing them in, and the national department and our department to re-question these. Are we getting the high positive rate because we've got an anomaly? Now, all the specialists say that it cannot be that the Western Cape environment is a different environment. It just must be that we either are slightly ahead of the curve, or perhaps that we are hunting where the positives are. Because remember, we do two things here. We screen and test like everyone else does.
Yeah.
So I think when we did our screening and testing on 300,000, we did about 9,000 tests to 300 screenings. But we also do track and tracing inside the hotspot. So for example, when we had a positive case detected in a factory here in Cape Town, we moved in, we actually found on the 3 shifts, we eventually found 90 cases in that one business. But we just tracked and traced every single person. We've got examples of retail outlets where we trace them down to positive. So in a workforce of 800, we would find 60 cases in that specific business. And then when only one tested positive, we didn't just leave it there. We went and worked on every single person that person had worked with, who they'd been coming in contact with. And so we were really getting every person that we were trying, because we were focusing, we were getting extra positive.
You're hunting down the virus, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all I'm doing is I'm following what the World Health Organization is advising, and then I'm in contact with one of the epidemiologists in Italy. We're following the World Health Organization, our own doctors and epidemiologists here who build our models are globally recognized. I mean, I think we've got some very, very serious people. That's why when the minister comes and he spends 3.5 hours in the Western Cape, and he leaves, and all he could say is, I mean, the health response is amazing, because it is.
But internally, though, please take me inside where you then say to them, but we don't agree with the numbers you're producing at national level. You say you spoke to Dr. Karim, Professor Karim, about this. When you say that, what do they then say?
Okay, I definitely don't do that. I'm not going to go there and start arguing about the Gauteng numbers.
Sure.
That's not my job. That is definitely not my job.
No, you're not arguing about Gauteng numbers. No, Premier. I think you need to hear me a little bit. I'm saying when you say to national, to ministers, that actually there's a difference in the numbers you are seeing at national level in our province versus what we are seeing. When you point that out to Professor Karim, what is the response?
So then they look at us, and that's why they've said to us, we're on track. In actual fact, what we said we were going to have in cases, we are having in cases. So it means that our best guesstimates are fairly close. Okay. I mean, and that's what I've got to work with. When it comes to, whether I think that they're testing sufficiently, or I've got questions about a death rate or whatever, I really don't think that's my job. I've got to make sure that I am doing what I need to do, and it's on track. So, I mean, even though I've just told you, we've got Masha and Asa are busy reassessing our model with our team this week. Next week, I've also established an internal red team who are going to do it again. So
you're constantly looking at your modeling.
Absolutely, you have to. And I always say to people when they say this is the epicenter, I say this is not a competition. definitely not a competition. This is South Africa having to beat this virus. And I will teach, learn, play a part, be involved, do whatever is necessary to make sure that we get through this thing successfully. I mean, I've had meetings with the Eastern Cape Premier, he and I, and our police commissioners to deal with cross-border funerals, migrant workforces, trying to find protocols. I'm actually at the moment busy looking at how some of the provinces, as premiers, we actually have a look at how we can actually share some of the learnings, because what the world is facing and what we are facing, there's no template for this.
I want to speak about areas like Khayelitsha,
Yes.
Many will say that your government is one that speaks to the affluent a little bit more, does a really great job in affluent communities. There is areas like Khayelitsha and Zameyetu as problematic areas. How ready are you for areas that are so densely populated, for cases in those particular areas?
I think that most of our focus at the moment is in Khayelitsha, in Dunoon, in the Tygerberg substructure, and in 9 of the hotspot areas. And none of them actually at the moment are affluent. I mean, some of them are maybe middle class, but none of them are affluent. And that is where we're zooming in, because that's where we're finding that, and obviously that's what happens in densely populated areas. That's where your risk is, and that's where our spread is. And that's why we've developed this hotspot model, where it started in Witzenberg when we saw a very fast growth there, and now that's being replicated in Khayelitsha, in the Tygerberg region, as well as in Dunoon. And the Dunoon model, which is we were going to show the president on Friday, obviously, hopefully by next Friday, we can even show him with the M&E, so we can say, this is the plan, this is how we implemented the plan, and this is the results of that plan.
You say when you don't agree with the president, you pick up the phone and you call him. How often how do these conversations go, What does he then say to you?
Well, I suppose, can I put it this way, that I think we have very good, amenable discussions. Obviously, sometimes it's issues that I'm not happy with. And then we agree on how we're going to try to solve them or to disagree. I wouldn't say they're confrontational, or we really are together trying to find solutions.
You are. And then the issue of level 3, that's the big conversation that's happening this week. You are pretty much ready to go. President announcing on Wednesday that some parts of the country will go to level 3 at the end of the month. Western Cape seems ready, and across the board, many people, again, it's perceptions, saying actually Western Cape should consider going back to level 5. Why do you feel so strongly that you're ready for level 3, Premier?
Because I'm trying to balance the humanitarian and economic crisis with our health readiness. And of course, I say level 3 across the province, because I've got parts of my province who have got 0 cases. I've got lots of towns in the province who have actually gone down in the number of cases, and so they should actually be going down to level 2 or have no restriction. But of course, we have restriction levels in our country. So then, of course, the hotspot is one area called Witzenberg, and as we spoke about, the Khayelitsha, the Tygerbergs, the Dunoons, those areas in the city.
All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Just before I go, though, Premier, message to your residents, citizens in the Western Cape, just your parting shots on, again, what they need to be mindful of as you navigate this process and as you push towards level 3.
So there's only one way we are going to get through this, and that all of us work together. We have to make sure that we do it by following the golden rules. There's got to be new normals. No business is going to open where you just carry on with business as usual, and no resident must carry on as if it is just business as usual. So if you get to that public transport interchange and you're getting into a bus or a taxi and it is overcrowded, you log on to the number, report that vehicle, and please step out. Make sure you've followed your processes of hygiene, masks, social distancing, because we've all got to play this role together. I also want to say that to every person that has helped us, whether it be following the rules, or whether it be out there making sure that citizens are fed, making sure that citizens are safe, making sure that together we are getting through this. All of those volunteers, those NGOs, those soup kitchens, I just want to say to them, thank you very, very much. This is a long road to go still. We've got many months of this ahead, and we can only do it if we all work together.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Premier.
A pleasure.
So that's Western Cape Premier Ellen Winde joining us via virtual platforms, speaking about dealing with the COVID virus and trying to move towards level 3 and the level of preparedness that the province has for the worst case scenario. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
And that's it from us for News 24. My name is Tshidi Madia, and this podcast was produced by Noktula Manyati.